Riverside.
Welcome to Dance Talk with Joanne Carey, where the dance world connects, the conversations inspire, and where we are keeping them real. I'm your host, Joanne Carey, and today I'm joined with Emily Coates. She is a dancer, a choreographer, a writer. She is currently working on a project that'll be at Works and Process at the end of November. We're going to talk about lots of things today with her, but I'm excited that she's here. Welcome, Emily, to Dance Talk.
Thank you so much, Joanne. I'm really excited to be in conversation with you. I love your podcasts.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, it's wonderful to get to connect with so many different artists. I mean, you know, the dance world, while it's small, we say, there's so many artists doing a lot of interesting work. So it's exciting to talk about that. But let's get started and give everybody an idea of who you are. You know, your background, what your education was, what your introduction to dance was, how you got started in this field.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'll try to keep it short. I'm sure everybody says that, but I started dancing quite young, of course. At age 5, my family was living in Brussels, Belgium, and my mom put me in some kind of lyrical dance classes at the nearby women's club. And I loved it, but also had some ambivalence about it and would end every class under the piano, making her unsure if I really liked any of it. But when we got back to Pittsburgh, which is where I largely grew up, my parents asked me, and I was game, and they checked me into a tiny storefront studio called École de Ballet, and just bless these two teachers, Laura Fry and Sandra Elsasser, who had no professional dance experience, but were smart and licensed the Royal Academy of Dance method. And somehow, it always amazes me, but through not so much the ether, because there was no internet in the 80s, but through the mail, they got, you know, very solid, very strong classical syllabi to follow. And I had great training with them. And then in my early, when I was about 12, went downtown to Pittsburgh Ballet School, which was part of Pittsburgh Ballet Theater. Pittsburgh Ballet Theater was being run by Patricia Wilde, a remarkable Balanchine ballerina. And that really was my first exposure to Balanchine. And once you have any taste of that choreography, there is nothing more you want to do as a ballet dancer, in my opinion. So the first piece I learned while in the school was Concerto Barocco. And I was maybe 13 years old and doing one of the two principal women, but it was clear it kind of blew my mind. The musicality, the athleticism, the vigor, the precision. And as soon as I had the opportunity to go for the summer program to the School of American Ballet, I was there. I went for a couple of summers, and finally, after some begging, my parents let me move to New York. So for the last 2 years of high school, this is a common story. For those in, you know, this insular ballet world, in this pipeline, I moved at 16 to New York, leaving my family behind, to finish high school and study at SAB. And the remarkable thing, among many, about this move is that I roomed with Allegra Kent. Allegra Kent being one of the most exquisite and famous of the Balanchine ballerinas, one of the most poetic. And at that time, this was 1990, She needed the money. She had a spare room. She had a huge pre-war on 86th Street and
Wow.
Amsterdam Avenue. And she rented the room to two SAB students. So I had a roommate, and that was my first 6 months in New York, was living with Allegra, and really seeing, even as I was in class at SAB with these remarkable teachers,
Mhm.
learning the details of Balanchine's style.
Mhm.
I would go home to Allegra's pre-war and see the history on the walls. Allegra bowing with Balanchine on the Russian tour, front of the curtain bow. She's in her La Sonnambula nightgown, and many other photos to look at. And one thing led to another. And after my second year at SAB, I was finishing my senior year of high school and performing leads in the workshop, which is the
Mhm.
important culminating end of year performance. And after the workshop that year, Peter Martins offered me a job with New York City Ballet.
Wow.
So that's how I come into Balanchine, which is
Mhm.
a subject of my current
Yeah.
commission with Works in Process. But I will say it's also very much part of my early history as a dancer, because
Mhm.
I did not stay that long. So while that training, my teachers at the school, my experience in the company was for about 5.5 years, was formative. I also had experiences within that made me realize I wanted to try other forms of dance.
Mhm.
I thought, I think I'm more and or a different kind of dancer than
I see.
exclusively a Balanchine
Mhm.
ballerina. Um, I was loving dancing with Jerome Robbins. I loved his theatricality. I caught his last 6 years
Wow.
and was part of a young cohort of dancers working closely with him.
Mhm.
He died. This was
Mm.
1998. I had worked with another choreographer that Peter Martins brought in named Angelin Preljocage.
Mhm.
And actually, the image over my shoulder
I
is
was
from the
wondering, okay.
duet,
Mhm.
the Preljocage duet, uh, and that I performed. And that also kind of opened my mind. We wore slippers. It was a very grounded
Mhm.
vocabulary. He used our neoclassical capabilities and also drove it in a kind of Euro modernist
Mhm.
expressionist direction. But all of that really was about the creative process.
Mhm.
And it made me realize what I most love is being in on the making of new work.
Mm,
And
okay.
New York City Ballet, there's no other ballet company I would have gone to.
Mhm.
It was, if I was going to be dancing ballet, that is where I
Mhm.
wanted to be. But it was clear to me I needed the creative process more frequently than Peter Martins was able to deliver in a
Mhm.
company that had many repertory demands, many dancers. And after a year of close conversation with Peter about what I was feeling and thinking
Mhm.
about, and I went back and forth in my own head. I went back and forth with
Mhm.
him, like, I'm leaving, no, I'm staying.
Yeah.
He finally said, I don't think I have what you need. And that was profound
Mhm.
and very true. And I finally strode into his office in August of 1998, and I said, "I've got to do it. I'm
Wow.
need to leave." And he said,
Mhm.
"Now?" And I said, "Now."
Mhm.
To explore modern dance, because that's the only
Okay.
word I had.
Mhm. Mhm.
Modern dance. I don't know exactly what that means, but there's a whole world out there.
Mhm.
And I left, and I was on unemployment, which is shocking after
Mhm.
having a contract with the
Sure.
most well-paid job in
Mhm.
dance in New York.
And were you at that point, I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, but were you at that point, still core member? Did you advance to soloist? What were you
I
in the
was a core performing soloist and
soloist
principal
roles? Got it. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was advancing. So
Mhm.
I I liked Peter Martins. We got
Mhm.
along, and I was doing well. And one of the
Mhm.
things that people said when they heard I left was, "You're doing so well."
Mhm.
But artistic spirit calls, and
Yeah. You know.
you
Mhm.
know. And the amazing thing, let me tell you, is I had a brainstorming list of people to talk to, classes to take,
Mhm.
work to go see. And I had put Mikhail Baryshnikov on the list because I knew, was the king of this crossover from
Mhm.
ballet to
Yes.
modern dance.
Yes.
I
Mhm.
knew he had White Oak. And in
Mhm.
fact, when I was 16, it toured to Pittsburgh. I
Wow.
saw an outdoor performance. I think Mark Morris was even also dancing.
Mhm.
And I had this idea that perhaps I could talk to him. And he came often through the company. He was taking class. He did some
Okay. Mhm.
performing, very little, but some performing with the company. He was working on a solo with Joan Robbins. So he was around. And through Peter Martin's assistant, I got in touch with him.
Mhm.
And she said, yeah, I'll talk to him. And he came into her office the next day. And she said, "We have a dancer. She's just left." And he said, "Why did she leave?
Mhm.
She's doing well." And he said, "I'll talk to her."
Mhm.
And Peter's assistant passed that on to me. And I thought, oh, fantastic.
Mhm.
And then the next day, she came back to me and said, he got back in touch and said, "Actually, have her call me. I have a job for her."
Wow.
So Mikhail Baryshnikov was offering me a job.
Wow. Wow.
This
What
was
was that
about,
like? What was that like for you?
this was he had been a poster at a cul
Right?
de ballet
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
suburbs of Pittsburgh
Right?
while I was a young ballet student. We had watched The Turning Point.
Oh
I
gosh.
I had a sense of him, but the thing about moving to New York, of course, is that it puts you in direct contact.
Yes.
And so
Mhm.
even upon moving and then finding myself in a rehearsal with Jerome Robbins
Mhm.
felt like a dream. Uh, that I would wake up from, but it was happening. And it was the same thing with Misha, that of course
Mhm.
these were the circles and I was
Yeah.
in these circles and he knew my dancing, which is why he didn't say, "I need you to audition," or
Mhm.
he was following the dancers. He knew my dancing.
Yeah.
He liked very much my work and invited me in.
Wow.
And the other amazing thing is that then within months of joining, I was performing a duet with him.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
And I ended up, that duet was by Carol Armitage in a work
Mhm.
of hers called The Last Lap.
Mhm.
Uh, Behind me, there's another photo.
Mhm.
That's a duet with Misha in The
Mhm.
Argument, a piece by Mark Morris.
Mhm.
I also danced with him in a work by Eric Hawkins. And I use this as a gift to young people who
Mhm.
are wondering about making bold decisions or following their heart.
Yeah.
I could have hung on another 10 years at City
Mhm.
Ballet, inching my way with 100 other dancers
Yeah.
at the mercy of Peter Martin's casting
Mhm.
and good favor. And I took a leap because I
Yeah.
knew I needed something else. And in doing
Yes.
that, I could never have imagined I would
Yeah.
connect with Baryshnikov.
Yeah.
But
I'm
that
glad
experience was formative too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you're saying that and you're pointing that out for listeners too, because when you're on the cusp of like, should I, shouldn't I, do I stay, do I go? I shared several times on my podcast, and people, obviously in my personal life, when I made the transition, because and I say this all the time, so ad nauseum to the listeners who are hearing it again, you know, I had a dance studio for 23 years.
Mm,
And probably around year 16, I started to feel that I have to make a change.
Mm,
And I
yeah.
kept, it gave me such a creative outlet, such a like my mind and my heart and all the things I was envisioning in my head, I was able to do on my students. Now, mind you, these were young students up through high school, but I
Mhm.
was able to express that. But when I started to really get restless as an artist, as a creative person, as a person, I was like, "Wow, do I stay or do I go? Am I gonna let down? Am I not gonna let down? Who am I gonna disappoint?" All those questions.
Mhm.
So I'm saying that for listeners that, taking that leap of faith, when you know in your gut that it's time,
Yeah.
the pieces start to fall into place, and then you have that I have so much gratitude looking back at that time. I'm sure you do, it sounds like you do, but I just think that's so important. So thank you for pointing that out for listeners. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that inner voice is so important
Mhm.
to listen to. It's very
Yeah.
real. The mantra, "Follow your heart," actually has a ton of wisdom in it,
Mhm.
and when you feel the need for change or the need to go seek, you
Mhm.
may not know where you're going to land, but you need to go seek. There's
I like that.
something
You
you
need to go
need,
seek. Yeah.
that's not yet in your immediate, and you've got to go. You've got to go find it.
Mhm.
And in my experience, life offers up,
Yeah.
um, it's an adventure.
Mhm.
So I performed with Misha for 4 years
Mhm.
in White Oak Dance Project, a fantastic repertoire
Mhm.
of old American modern dance historical classics,
Mhm.
like pieces by Eric Hawkins, Early Floating. The first piece I learned with White Oak was Glacial Decoy, a
Mhm.
seminal work by Trisha Brown. That was crazy to rewire my New York City Ballet technique
Yeah.
to try to meet her
Mhm.
gravity and momentum and release.
Yes. Yes.
um, really fabulous experience. And cutting edge 1990s choreographers up and coming in the downtown scene that Misha was captivated by,
Mhm.
like Sarah Mitchelson,
Mhm.
who's now a mega celebrity in the dance world,
Mhm.
or John Jaspers, who
Mhm.
was coming up at the time, or Neil Greenberg. Miguel Gutierrez was working with John Jaspers. And so I met all these people in this circumstance of this, riding on Baryshnikov's artistic curiosity.
Mhm.
And we came to a moment where he decided to reach out to Yvonne Rainer to or invite her to make a piece.
Mhm.
Yvonne Rainer, being a pioneer of postmodern dance,
Mhm.
she had not made a dance in 25 years.
Wow.
She had been an experimental filmmaker off in the experimental film world. And Misha happened to go see a performance of hers, a dance she's well known for called Trio A downtown,
Mhm.
in the late 90s, and thought maybe she'd like to do this. And
Mhm.
that was my first encounter with the work of Yvonne Rainer.
Mhm.
We made a piece of hers. And then he decided to launch a retrospective of postmodern dance.
Mhm.
And that brought me into contact with Lucinda Childs,
Oh, wow. Okay.
I performed a phenomenal solo of hers called
Mm.
Carnation, which
Mm.
involved a vegetable strainer on your
Mhm.
head and hair rollers and a sheet and all sorts of wonderful things in this more of a performance art piece from 1964 and many other work.
Mhm.
And then White Oak folded. I had the chance to work with Twyla and I
Mhm.
seized it. And that put me back into point shoes, which I thought
Mhm.
I had left completely.
Right, right.
But at a certain point, she was like, "You have this technique. Why aren't you using it?" And I
Mhm.
was like, "Okay, for Twyla, I put these back on. I'll put these point
Yeah.
shoes back on." Um, and then again, that inner voice kicked in,
Mhm.
and I realized I have done so much at this point, 11 years full time in these different companies.
Mhm.
And White Oak was small. I mean, we were
Mhm.
5 dancers
Mhm.
and Baryshnikov when I joined and worked with him. Um, but I felt like I really wanted to start making my own work. I'd always
Okay.
loved school
Mhm.
and writing. And at 29, I applied as a transfer student with some credits I had accumulated. I applied to Yale
Okay.
and they accepted me and I got in. So I came as this awkward 29-year-old
Mhm.
sophomore professional dancer, and no one knew or thought I was
Mhm.
their age. They all thought I was their
Mhm.
age. And I ended up, after initially thinking it was a big mistake, settling in and finished my degree.
Mhm.
And when I finished, didn't know what I was going to be doing. Would I go back to New York? Would I try
Mhm.
to join the road show of moving out or whatever trial I
Right,
was
right.
working on?
Yeah.
Would I do something else altogether? And a professor at Yale named Joseph Roach won a $1.5 million award from the Mellon Foundation
Mm.
to spend in his area of interest toward institutional change. He was a performance studies scholar who knew something about dance. So this
Mhm.
was 2003 to 2006 when I was a
Okay.
student. Yale had no regular curricular representation
Right,
of
I
dance.
was gonna say, yeah.
And we had spent the whole semester when I was working with him, my last semester, talking about why. And he won this award. And I went into my last quote unquote independent study
Mhm.
meeting. And he said, "Would you like a job? I'll
Wow.
let you write your own job description.
Wow.
I would love for you to begin building a
The
dance
dance.
curriculum, working with me on a performance studies initiative called the World Performance Project."
Wow.
And I did that with him for 6 years.
Mhm.
And then that parlayed into my current full time faculty position. But I
Mhm.
essentially was the inaugural director of dance studies
Wow.
at Yale for 19 years. Have
Wow.
just this year handed it to
Ah, okay.
my wonderful, extremely capable, talented colleague, Amanda
Mhm.
Reed, who's now taking it
Oh,
over,
I
a
know that name.
Caribbeanist
Okay. Mhm.
dance historian. Uh, and in this whole time had also been both performing, continuing to perform in the work of Yvonne Rainer. So
Mhm.
I was 25-year history of performing with Yvonne Rainer and also starting to make my own work.
Mhm. Okay.
And maybe I'll just pause there and we can,
Yeah.
tell me
Yeah.
whatever questions, but that's
No.
sort of like the short but long answer to the journey of arriving at making
Yes.
my own work.
It's so fascinating because, it makes, total sense to me, because I'm following it, I'm following it along, and so many people were placed in your, path that, even as a young girl, when you were in Pittsburgh and you said Misha was I call Misha, I don't even know. So,
Go
he
for it.
was a poster,
Yeah.
a poster on the wall, and then here he is, and you're working with him and all that growth. What I'm curious about is, what was it about modern dance? I know you did a lot of postmodern work, and maybe you
Hmm.
can explain that for people because, even we as modern dancers, we're always like, "What is modern?" Well, we don't really know, you know,
Yeah. It's a
but maybe,
useless term.
yeah, yeah, but maybe you can talk about what was it that drew you to that style
Hmm.
of dance, and then we can take it from there.
Yeah. And I, again, going back to striding into Peter Martin's office and
Mhm.
declaring I was going to explore modern dance, I didn't know what that meant. I had
Mhm.
seen Paul Taylor,
Okay, okay, I see,
Cunningham,
got it.
Trisha Brown, I'd seen Ailey.
Mhm.
Um, and so I had this bit of a sense of the landscape
Mhm.
in New York. But I think it was a blanket concept that ended up getting defined by each specific artist's vision.
Mhm, mhm. Yes, that's a good way of putting it.
I
Mhm,
think
mhm.
that's why the term modern dance is so inadequate because it's actually about the subjective fixations, passions, and specificities about any given choreographer and how they're choosing to define their interests, their method of choreography, their relationship to music, their processes. And of course, there are lineages feeding in
Yes.
to all of this, and we can name them. And I think I'm very much a dancer shaped by late 20th century dance. What
Mhm.
was on the landscape at the time. Um, I didn't go into the Graham classes, or I took one and I thought that's
Mhm.
not for me. um, but Cunningham, I really loved. I
Mhm.
identified with Cunningham. And in that period of time when I was on unemployment, that's where I landed.
I
When
see.
Misha offered me the job, I had
Mhm.
been devotedly taking company class with the Cunningham Company
Mhm.
that fall for 2 months.
Okay.
And so that sort of ended up becoming my definition of modern
Yeah.
dance.
Yeah.
But because of Preljoukaj, I also, and because of what I was seeing in the European landscape, I also felt like there's something there. I had
Mhm.
spent my childhood in Brussels, so I am
Mhm.
a Francophile,
Right.
and
Yeah.
there was something in the French way of defining modern dance.
Mhm.
And actually, Angela Preljoukaj had studied Cunningham, so,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
the American lineages are feeding in over
Yes.
there as well. Um, but yeah, so that's a long
Yeah.
answer to the fact of what I came to realize in seeking creative process
Mhm.
is how much it's defined simply by the choreographer you're working with.
That's I like how you say that. That's the first time I've heard that, quote unquote definition or explanation, but it makes sense. It really does make sense. And the lineage, when you talk about the lineage being there, that's so true because so many of the modern, the mothers and fathers, I guess I'll call them of
Mhm.
modern dance, have come out of the other companies and come out of to
That's right.
start to see because they're seeking their way of moving, their interpretation of the music. Um, so when you were now moving your body in this way, as a here you were a trained Balanchine dancer, a trained ballet dancer. What was that experience like for you when now you were moving in a whole new way, yet the ballet technique really, I find, really, just gives you that strength and
Yeah,
just, a way of moving, I think even more so, a versatility when you approach modern dance. I don't know how you think about that.
I agree. And again, going back to this meeting, this final declaration with Peter Martins, the last thing he said to me was, "Never stop taking ballet class."
Yeah, yeah.
And I got out, and I thought, well, we'll see. Uh, and my boyfriend at the time, who was also a dancer in this period I was on unemployment, he's like, "You need to take something other than a ballet class in order to know if you like anything in
Right,
this
right.
so-called modern dance landscape." Um, but I I do believe there is something wonderfully foundational to the classical training.
Yeah.
And even the Balanchine style has to be layered onto a very solid classical
Yes.
base.
Yes, yes.
So I had already gone from these different teachers and
Mhm.
situations, from Royal Academy of Dance,
Yes.
filtered through two local Pittsburgh
Mhm.
women who did this beautiful job of just kind of
Yeah.
giving the pure form, to Pittsburgh Ballet School, Patricia
Mhm.
Wilde, understanding, okay, there's this thing called Balanchine style, and I'm seeing
Mhm.
it in how she teaches.
Mhm.
to moving to New York and suddenly downloading so much detailed, specific
Mhm.
beautiful information with
Mhm.
beautiful and now like opening the windows to the Mediterranean
Yeah.
Sea, take your sweater off, hold a glass
Yeah.
of champagne, the language and
Yeah.
uh in that style and in the information,
Mhm.
I already was feeling like I'm a translator,
Mhm. Okay. That's
you
yep.
know?
Yep. Mhm.
It's like
Yes.
learning to speak different languages
Yes.
and you start to carry knowledge across.
Mhm.
You hold on to what you know, but then you have to do some reworking and
Mhm.
rewiring.
Yep.
And so at the point when I started to take Cunningham, it, that fall that I left the ballet, it was very familiar. Um, and also adding on,
Mhm.
right? There were things I had to drop. I had to drop the up for
Mhm.
this, but the turnout I could hold on
Yeah.
to. I could still point my feet
Mhm.
were still like that, but then I had to get to know how to add my torso.
Right.
That's
Yes.
crazy.
Yes.
And then Misha invited me in, and the first rehearsal I had with White Oak was for Glacial Decoy, this
Uh-huh.
piece by Trisha Brown. And that was radical rewiring of instinct.
Okay.
And it was a very slow process. And what I, for example, how I might get into something like an arabesque. An
Mhm.
arabesque exists in Trisha's work,
Mhm.
but it is not arrived at in the same
Same
way.
way.
So relearning impulse,
Mhm.
momentum,
Yes.
motivation, different relationship to gravity.
Mhm.
But always, I always felt in me, I am a much more grounded dancer
Mhm.
um and something about the artifice of the elaborate bun and
Mhm.
the false eyelashes
Mhm.
and the tiara and I loved that as a theatrical gesture,
Yeah.
but I also felt like I'm also really interested in I'm a Taurus, maybe that I'm like earth sign, so maybe
Yes.
that's part
Yes.
of it, but I'm very interested in the ground and the earth
Mhm.
and kind of
Yes.
a powerful sense of meanness
Mhm.
in the
Mhm.
dancing that's not
Yes.
um
All lifted and
yeah.
ethereal. Yeah. Yeah. I
And it,
remember. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, no, go ahead.
I remember when I first started, because my beginning was jazz and musical theater, and then
Mhm.
I remember then when I first was taking, a modern class, I was horrified by bare feet. I was at first, 'cause everything was in my jazz shoe and my theater my character shoes, all that kind of dancing, and then when I had to, like, be barefoot, I'm like, "What? How can I dance barefooted?" And then I couldn't it was hard to put shoes back on after, like, really dancing barefooted, and also it took a while because at first I would think like, "Oh my goodness, modern dancers, like, there's no leotard? Like, what's happening here?" I mean, some do, but it was just
Mhm.
a looser style of clothing, and I was just like, "Wow, what's happening?" And so
Mhm.
there's that whole thing where ballet, there's something I always would when I was teaching, I would always say, something is about showing up dressed like a ballet dancer. That's gonna
Yeah.
put you in that character, in that mindset. Same thing with modern or whatever it was you're working on. So it's interesting. It's just a different style. I find it's like I don't play an instrument, but with music, obviously, I know music from dancing and listening to music and just like the sheet music. I feel like, ballet is one part and the modern is all the other stuff. Go not
Mhm.
that ballet can't be that, but I'm just saying like that traditional classical ballet and then modern veers from that and goes all over the
Mhm.
keyboard, so to
Yeah.
speak. So
And of course, ultimately, your goal is to find yourself,
mhm,
you know?
yeah.
And these styles, these techniques, these forms that you move through in your training or your professional career, whether it's music or dance or
Mhm,
vocal, vocal music or what have you, you are synthesizing these histories in order
mhm,
to come out with yourself, the
Yes.
most you as an artist you can be. And you have to try different homes in order to find really where
Yeah.
your home is. And ultimately, you kind of need to make that home for it to
Mhm.
be home.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Yeah.
And I say
Yeah.
that whether it's someone who stayed at New York City Ballet for 25 years, Wendy Whalen, whose work I absolutely love, I was watching her uh, as a young dancer getting in, watching her make it her home, like
Mhm.
forcibly willing her place
Mhm.
in that repertory. And that's wonderful to watch. And I had to migrate to find it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had to go out. I had to find Baryshnikov
Yeah.
and
What a
Twyla.
find.
Yeah.
What a find.
um, to help me find myself in the
Mhm.
end.
Yeah. And so what brings you now to this piece that you're creating? It's called Tell Me Where It Comes From, correct? Is that the
Mhm.
title of the piece? So this piece that you're what was the impetus to create this piece and this collaboration? And I want to talk about some of those wonderful artists and how this all came about. Talk about that.
Yeah. So I've been making my own work
Mhm.
for about, in different forms, for about 15 years.
Mhm.
Choreographing, writing, sometimes colliding the two,
Mhm.
sometimes working in film, though less frequently.
Mhm.
Um, I love performance.
Mhm.
It is my medium. And at a
Yeah.
certain point, even at City Ballet, I realized like, oh, I am researching performance. Like every
Yeah.
night is different. And what
Yeah.
I ask of this moment and what the
Mhm.
audience is telling me changes. And what I'm going to
Mhm.
find changes based on where and what I'm searching for. And so performance as a medium, as I, have gone in and out of kind of questioning and seeking and looking for what's right for me, performance itself as a medium is
Mhm.
of enduring fascination and love.
Mhm.
And so I've been making my work in different forms with different influences acting upon me because I am very steeped actually in the postmodern dance lineages from a close 25 years with Yvonne Rainer, knowing her tools and some of the basic values of being and presence. Um, I have absorbed those, absorbed my interest in writing, wanting to write for performance. And so I've made different things. I've went through a 10-year period collaborating with a particle physicist. We wrote a book
Wow.
together. I revived a 1965 piece of Yvonne Rainer's with her called Parts of Some Sextets.
Mhm.
Um, eh, and all the while making projects of my
Mhm.
own. And it arrived at a moment where, in thinking about what would I want to do next,
Mhm.
I realized now's the time. I
Mm.
kind of want to really look back
Mhm.
at this early influence upon
Yeah.
me
Yeah.
and say something about it or make sense of it for myself
Mhm.
with who I am now, with the experiences I've accumulated. Um, One thing I inherit from Yvonne Rainer is a deep interest in dance history and dance
Mm.
history as running through the subject of the work, the argumentation of the work,
Mhm.
the dialogue of past and present,
Mhm.
and the specific lineages that I'm within.
Mhm.
And I'm within the Balanchine lineage. And so I began to think about going back to these roots. And a couple of things happened. One, there was the 75th anniversary of New York City Ballet
Mhm.
2 years ago. And I was there as an alum.
Mhm.
And to see that whole crowded
Yeah.
stage
Yeah.
and to think about how much knowledge these bodies hold and where they've gone with it. And so I
Mhm.
spoke to former dancers who want to become a doctor.
Mm.
One had become a librarian, one,
Mhm.
just all these
Sure.
life trajectories, but carrying this DNA.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about the body as an archive. Um, and at the same time, I did an event at the Wadsworth Atheneum Museum of Art in
Mhm.
Hartford. And an individual there who's wonderful named Adam Lenz, who's
Mhm.
the public programming manager, mentioned to me, he said, we have this box in the archives. It's called the American Ballet Box,
Wow.
1933 to 34. And it's just now in the process of being formally processed.
Wow.
And of course, I was like, what is
Yeah.
in that box?
Box.
And for those who may not know this history, when Balanchine was first seduced into coming to
Mhm.
America by Lincoln Kirstein, Kirstein reached out to a handful of friends.
Mhm.
And one of them was Chick Austin, the young museum director at the Wadsworth Atheneum
Mhm.
Museum of Art, who persuaded or arm twisted his board of directors to permit him to set up the School of American Ballet inside the museum and host Balanchine's company.
That's
So
always
this,
so amazing. I have
yeah,
to I have to, take that in for a moment because I
yeah,
know some of the history up in Hartford and that area with Balanchine because of Hartford Ballet
yeah,
and having been up there. But I mean, that's just amazing. And if people don't know that, I'm glad you're pointing that out because it's such an interesting, it's not just a little tidbit. That's like the seed. That's the seed. So
yeah.
continue. Yeah.
And once you look closely at that local history, there are very funny things like the local ballet teachers were outraged and
Oh,
they put up a fight. They wanted no part of this Russian import being
wow.
set up on their turf. So that's all,
Hmm.
part
That's in
of
the box.
the archival traces.
Wow.
Chick Austin was an incredibly ambitious individual. So at the same time, he was producing Picasso's first show in America and putting up Gertrude Stein and Virgil Thompson's Four Saints and Three Acts,
My
all in
goodness.
this Avery Theater, which is still there today. And we're going to be doing my project there in February. Um, so that started this process. And when I went to look at the box, they put before me a sheaf of photographs.
Mm.
And the photographs were labeled only American Ballet, December 1934.
Oh.
So I should add here, those for the listeners, Balanchine was going to be set up in Hartford,
Hmm.
but once arriving, basically overnight, went to Lincoln Kirstein and said, no way.
Hmm.
I need to be in New York. He had come from the metropoles,
Right, right.
of Europe and abroad, and he did not want to be in what he saw as the provinces.
Hmm.
So so that didn't happen, but they did bring him back,
Hmm.
December 1934, and I was looking at a very small number, maybe half a dozen images,
Hmm.
not labeled, so it wasn't clear what are these dances.
Hmm.
It was clear it was his company, um, but as I was looking, my eyes wandered to the left, and I realized there is a head in the wings,
Oh,
and I realized that's Balanchine.
wow.
And because this collection of materials was just now getting formally processed, they hadn't labeled that. So in the
Hmm.
finding aid, it wouldn't have come up, we have a
Hmm.
photo of Balanchine.
Yeah.
But here was Balanchine, age 30, standing in the wings in Hartford
Wow.
on the stage that I have presented my own work on. And that set me off on the journey. And so the project initially was a vague I'm going to look back at this history. I have a group of collaborators. But once I saw those archives, I began to shape it as driven by archival research and
Mhm.
specifically an archival trail.
Mm.
Um, there are Balanchine's papers at Harvard, in
Wow.
Cambridge. Um, his second wife, Vera Zorina, also has papers. He's represented there. And then I got curious about the Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library, which is here in my home university at Yale. And I looked there, and they don't have a dance collection to speak
Mhm.
of, but they have a lot of odd marginalia traces
Mhm.
of Balanchine and his dancers, particularly between the 30s and the 50s.
Mhm.
Um, then a professor emeritus of engineering at Yale gave me these.
Okay, so I just want to pause for a second. So anybody who's not watching on video, check out the video. But if you're just listening, Emily's holding up New York City Ballet, and it's a picture. These, oh gosh, look at those.
Maria Tallchief, photos by
Wow.
George Patlines. These are
Wow.
all George Patlines. These are publicity brochures from the 1950s.
1950s. Oh my goodness. And you just have them just like that.
And they landed in my lap
Wow.
from a professor here who loves um, ballet,
Oh,
but
look at
also
that.
loves George Patlines. So Taniqua Leclerc, elaborate,
Wow. Look at
beautiful
that.
costumes.
Oh my gosh. Anybody listening only on audio, you have to go check out the video of this podcast just to see these pictures. Oh my
Andrei
goodness.
Glevsky, Nora Kay.
Wow.
So these photos, these images, or these
Mm-hmm.
bodies, these
Mm-hmm.
dancers became core. But I'm going to show you something else.
Okay.
So then, for example, this is at Harvard. This is a
Oh, it's
Xerox of it, but
piece of
it's in
sheet music, right?
core. And you'll see it says, Just Hold Me Tenderly. And the composer is George Balanchine.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Look at that. And now is that has that been recreated in your piece? That piece of
We didn't use this, but we
oh.
do incorporate music exercises that
Mhm.
are in his
Mhm.
archive. So
Wow,
there's a
okay.
whole sheaf of music scores,
Oh my gosh.
handwritten notation. He loves minor key.
Mhm.
He's working through harmonics and passing chords and
Oh,
counterpoint. And you see that thought process in the archives.
you need to do
Um,
like a, display, like a museum
yeah,
display. Oh,
I'm thinking about a
yeah.
book of some of the charts, because I think
Mhm.
the way you need to piece together, well, you have to work across archives, first of
Mhm,
all.
mhm.
Second of all, I should add, there are phenomenal biographies on Balanchine. So
Mhm, mm.
in no way was this a kind of
Right, right.
recuperation or biography.
Mhm,
Jennifer Homan's recent book is wonderful. Mr.
mhm.
B, Balanchine in the
Yeah.
20th Century. Robert Gottlieb has a wonderful book I love, Balanchine Dance Master. There are writings on early Balanchine in America. Elizabeth Kendall, James Steichen have great books.
Mm.
So none of this project was trying to kind of pull together a cohesive
Mhm.
biography. That's been done and beautifully. The impulse really is more about afterlife, where
Okay.
things land, where they're living on the margins,
Mhm. Okay.
outside of the center. And the
Okay.
center is, of course, New York City Ballet,
Right,
still
right.
performing the works.
Mhm, mhm.
But I became very interested in, well, what happens if I look on the edges?
Yeah.
And I will add just one more thing, which is my time in the company. I got to work with Robbins.
Mhm,
I got to work with Baryshnikov and Twyla, Yvonne Rainer. I know these people as people. But Balanchine was a specter. Do
mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
He was omnipresent in the company and absent.
Mhm, mhm.
And so I felt I was always patching together a view of him, of
Okay.
the choreographer through other
Mhm.
people's bodies
Mhm.
and through very subjective interpretations, also
Mhm.
ultimately, through the choreography, through their bodies, through the stories that were told and handed down. There's always this missing person.
Mhm.
And I think part of this project, why go into these archives when I could pick up any secondary literature and learn a lot about the artist, the choreographer, because I wanted to see what I could learn about this individual, how his mind worked through these really primary archival materials.
Mhm.
And that makes me turn now to my collaborators.
Mhm. Yeah.
um, and so I can tell you a little bit about that.
Mhm.
The group of artists working with me are all unique, phenomenal artists. They are all, for the most part, not in dance.
Mhm.
And so this also became a project about passing the legacy sideways. Like
Okay,
what would
passing.
individuals from other disciplines
Mhm.
make of these shards?
Mhm.
I'm also fortunate that everyone on the creative team also loves archives.
Yeah.
uh it's a particular kind of
Yes.
person, who, like, I'll show you one more.
Mhm.
This is an envelope. It's a letter from Balanchine's mother.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
wow. And wait, was that coming from Russia?
Yeah,
Mm. Oh
1936
my gosh,
circa.
wow.
She's addressed it to George Balanchine School of American Ballet.
Oh my
It's on
gosh.
Madison Avenue, but she
Wow.
doesn't really know where he is, so
Yeah,
but she
just
knows he
kinda like
started a
yeah.
school. Um,
Oh my
Things like
gosh.
this,
Yeah.
we fell in love with these letters from his
Mhm.
mother, which are very quotidian, very
Mhm.
mundane.
Oh. Are
They're
they
about
in Russian?
they're in Russian,
So
so
so someone translated them for you?
yes, it's a
Wow.
beautiful story. A
Oh.
neighbor of mine, his father was native Russian born, and his mother also speaks Russian,
Oh my
and
gosh, wow.
they collaborated on the translation of these letters. Once I was sort of talking about the project
Mhm.
at a party, and
Mhm.
Alice Stone Nakimovsky and Alexander Nakimovsky are the translators. And Alice said, "Well, you send me the letters. We can take a look."
Wow. Oh my goodness.
So
That's amazing.
the amazing thing about the letters are that he never answered,
Okay.
but he saved them
Mhm.
with him until the day he died.
Oh, wow.
So things like that are quite moving when you
Mhm.
really look at the detritus
Mhm. Mhm.
to encounter firsthand for yourself.
Wow.
And so my team of artists, I have worked with in different ways and different lengths of time, but closely. And the first is Aine Gordon, who's
Mhm.
a award-winning playwright, director, dramaturg, and he takes up archives in his playwriting. So he's the director on the
Mhm.
project, Outside Eyes. Derek Lucci is a performer and co-creator in the work.
Mhm.
Derek is an actor who is a remarkable mover.
Mhm.
So I can really push him choreographically.
Mhm.
And he has this gift of reading found material sort of half in and half out.
Mhm.
He's the person, but he's not.
Mhm. Mhm.
He's showing you that historical gap
Wow, okay.
between now and then and who that person was, while also evoking something about the
Mhm.
writer or the individual. So he has a way of dealing with found material, found text that I just love. He's
Are
also
is
an
it
avid researcher.
are you using text in the performance? Is there
Yeah.
spoke okay, okay.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
the performance is a layered
I see.
collage of movement, choreographic form,
I see, okay.
choreographic quotation,
Ah,
found texts,
mhm,
music.
mm,
So my musicians, Charlie Burnham is a legendary violinist
mm,
who works across many different domains and a composer. And Charlie took some of the music scores and again from the rubble has
mhm,
made and envisioned new work. So his new compositions are part of the performance.
mm,
Melvin Chen is an extraordinary pianist and plays the music
mhm,
exercises and then other pieces that are folded in.
mhm.
Um, Henry Seth is a former New York City ballet dancer who I encountered in Hartford. Uh,
That Hartford.
Henry, important, the Hartford connection, but
Yeah.
Henry and I were in the company together. And then, of course, I left, and then Henry stayed many more years. And so Henry has this very special cameo in the project
Oh,
where he is quoting from a piece called The Unanswered Question, a
mm.
ballet Balanchine choreographed in 1954 for the 17-year-old Allegra Kent.
Oh my gosh, wow. This sounds like it should be
Um,
a movie.
and who am I leaving out? Krista Smith is our lighting designer,
Mhm,
who is doing incredible work working with sources from the photographs, conjuring
mhm.
lighting motifs,
Wow.
and also evoking this is an interesting part of
Mhm,
the history. Jean Rosenthal,
mhm.
a female lighting designer, 40s and 50s. Balanchine worked closely with her. She also happens to be a pioneer of the field of lighting design. And
Wow.
Krista knew this connection. And so when I reached out to her, she held up Jean Rosenthal's book
Oh my
and
gosh.
said Jean Rosenthal was there too.
Wow. Oh my
So
gosh.
Krista's our lighting designer. Our
Mhm,
stage manager is Ed Fitzgerald, who's his
mhm,
own legend in the field of
mhm,
stage management. And costume designers are Reed Bartlemy and Harriet Young, who are
mhm.
so fantastic. They're designing costumes now for New York City Ballet, for Justin Peck, for Pam Tanowitz. And they and I connect in the level of history,
Mm,
where we've worked together now on a couple of projects of uh, pulling from history
mhm,
costumes or references.
mm,
And they have done this in this case with these early Balanchine
mhm.
works, specific items they've reimagined and re-realized for the performance project.
Oh my goodness, and it's how many performers are in the piece, in the project?
So there are three performers, me, Derek Lucci, and Henry Seth. And
Mhm.
then we're joined by our two musicians, Charlie
So
Burnham and Melvin Chen.
so everybody's on stage, like the
Mhm.
musician and I read too, is this accurate that the audience is on s
The
like
audience
how
is on stage at some venues, but
okay.
at
Oh, at some
the
venues, okay.
Guggenheim, we wouldn't all fit
Of course, yeah,
because
yeah.
the stage is, small,
Mhm,
so it won't be presented that way at the Guggenheim, but in
mhm,
certain venues, the
yeah,
audience is also on stage.
mhm,
And, as we worked with these materials, the piece has taken different turns and
mhm.
directions, but to me, where we end up is in the far recesses of the choreographer's imagination.
Yeah.
The parts that you don't anymore see
Mhm,
on the stage, ballets that were lost, set aside,
mhm,
maybe deemed a bit too weird,
mhm,
uh, where Balanchine is really digging at the afterlife, digging at his own mortality, digging using theatrical tools.
mhm,
His work has, in moments, a theatrical messiness outside of the work that we know well.
mhm,
We know
mhm,
Agon,
mhm,
we know the Four Temperaments, we know
mhm.
the branded neoclassical black and white ballets the leotard
Mhm.
ballets, the very spare,
Yeah.
potent neoclassical statement. I got very interested in this process of the the edges,
Yes,
where
yes.
he's not totally on his game because these
Mhm.
pieces don't survive. They don't carry forward.
Mhm.
But he is, as an artist, as a poet, he is really digging down into the recesses of his imagination.
Wow. Which is
And
wonderful, which is probably, I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, which is
mm,
probably, why he creates the way he creates, and he reaches the edges, or, and I say
yeah,
that in the movement, it seems like, dancers are pushed to the edge without going
hmm,
over the edge. You just
yeah,
get to the
absolutely,
edge and then you come back. You get to the edge and then you come back. And that's, he was able to communicate that into his dancers. And
yeah.
that's a genius. You got to say it, like a genius at work.
I think you've said it so well. He was always interested in the edges, right?
Mhm.
Of where is the edge? You can go farther. You can
Mhm.
go more. The edge of a dancer. It's
Mhm.
you have not even yet begun to push
Yeah.
your edges, and how he worked with his dancers.
Mhm.
And I would say this is a project very much about the edges, about
Mhm.
even beyond the choreographic forms
Mhm.
that he's known for. There is a detritus of darkness, theatricality, of angels,
Mhm.
of experimentation
Yeah.
that we tried very hard in the piece we've made to capture the spirit of it
Yeah.
using different tools because
Mhm.
we're all coming from different backgrounds, different lineages, and it's very much an
Mhm.
interdisciplinary multimedia work.
Yeah, and I definitely think it needs to be a movie. But it really sounds that way, and I think I really appreciate your depth of history and how you go you call, archival, but I love that too. Like, I love to research and to find and to dig a little deeper and to wait, there's gotta be more. What's behind that, so that just fills the work out. I can only imagine so much more, than just, you know, throwing it, "Oh, here's some pictures and we got this and let's, put it together on stage." But to you're like living and breathing the things you don't know about him.
And
Yeah.
I would say my collaborators and the creative team are so invaluable to we've this work is really a representation of us deeply discussing and acquainting ourselves physically, putting the words in our mouths,
Mhm.
the movements, assuming them as one can at the age that we are and the life
Mhm.
experience we have. I have spent so many hours with Derek Lucci, who's an actor who's
Mhm.
endlessly driven by how people tick, what
Mhm.
makes people tick. And, Derek's own research went uh, in a different direction and outside of mine, what he was reading and absorbing.
Mhm.
He went in a deep dive into Vera Zorina, for
Mhm.
instance, who's the second wife of George Balanchine, super interesting woman. Um, and Charlie Burnham with the music, Ain helping to, fit it all together. So it's really, I'm all for collaboration. I'm
Mhm.
just going to
Yeah.
drop that in to
Yeah.
young listeners that you enhance your own questions and enrich your own inquiry through the
Yeah.
dialogue with others. You make something more than any one individual of us could have made.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. Thank you. Thank you. It's and I think too with putting is it premiering with Works in Process? It
Yeah.
hasn't premiered yet. So the Works in Process, is it one performance? It's a
Yeah,
one
it's one in New York,
one in New
November
York on
23rd.
November 23rd, Works in Process. And then you said you were performing again in February. Is that correct? Is that what you said? Or is there
Yeah. So
what are the other performances?
listeners could pick us up in Hartford. We're going to
Mhm.
be at the Wadsworth Atheneum on that historic Avery
Oh,
Theater stage.
and
That's
that's
February 26th.
February 26th.
In April, we circle around to Yale, and it'll be at the Schwartzman Center here at Yale, April
Mhm,
23rd and 24th.
mhm.
And those are the known dates.
Okay, yep.
We're hoping for further touring beyond.
Mhm. Yeah. And how, it's a, what is the length of the piece?
The length of the piece is about 75 minutes.
Okay, good. So it's a real evening work of peace.
It
So
is.
yeah, very,
Yeah.
very nice. Yeah. And is
Mhm.
there an intermission, no intermission? I'm just
No
curious. It's my own
intermission. Yeah.
curiosity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause in my head, it's going like, oh, what's that? And how are you feeling now in the process? Are you feeling you're ready? Like we need to now do this? Or are you like, let's tweak? I still need to tweak.
Tweaking is ongoing,
Ongoing. Yes.
it's
Yes.
live performance. It's
Yeah.
like taking care of a coral reef. You're
Hmm.
constantly,
Yes.
um, nurturing and adjusting. But yeah, we're so ready to share the work,
Mhm.
in New York, and this year it's been
Good.
a 2-year process.
Mhm.
Uh,
Oh, okay, I was
so
gonna
we've 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 done our homework. We've done a deep
yeah.
dive, and the 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 work is the outcome of it, It's
Yes,
been
yes.
a really wonderful experience working on
Yeah.
this project with
And
these
I
friends.
you can hear the passion you have about it. There's real
Mhm.
it's a passion project, but it's more than that too. I think it sounds like it's gonna be a real gift to the dance community, but the Balanchine legacy, really sounds that way.
It's offering a different perspective, and I
Mhm.
think it only adds air and loft to a legacy
Yeah,
to be able to acknowledge it moves.
yeah.
And it is absolutely in the home of New York City Ballet
Mhm.
and under that caretaking. But as I said, the alums are everywhere.
Yeah.
The companies, the satellite companies, these
Mhm.
ideas, and that's the power of them
Mhm.
from this one choreographer with a lot of help from
Yeah,
institutions and patrons and Lincoln Kirstein
yeah,
and the dancers that he worked with
yeah.
has spread an aesthetic influence that is, far flung.
Yeah, it is, and I just wanted to say this. You're bringing it to mind. I what we say to you, keep taking ballet class. I take ballet class, and in the ballet classroom, in the studio, there is a picture of Balanchine hanging.
Uh,
And it's funny because I'll be turning, and all of a sudden I'll catch it. It's like he's there. It's like a
mhm.
living photograph of him, and there's just something about and again, I didn't study under Balanchine, right? But seeing that and the teacher has studied under Balanchine and you just feel there's just something living just by when I catch his eyes in that photograph. You know, and
I
it's
love
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And you'd wondered when I say in the description of the project, the spark of creation,
Mhm.
the original impulse. Where is the living spark and how to find it in dance history in this ever
Mhm.
receding distance from the choreographer's presence on this
Mhm.
earth? It's in those relations
Yeah,
between the choreographer and his dancers, and that's what you see in the archives. It is a subterranean root network of
yeah,
interpersonal relationships that buoyed up, created
yeah,
this repertory, buoyed it up, and then carried it into the
yeah,
future.
yeah.
It's the people.
Yeah, it is, and Emily, you're one of those people, you're one of those people carrying that legacy. I could
And
keep
so
talking
are
to
you.
you. Oh my goodness. I could
So are
talk to
you.
you. Thank you. I could keep talking. I love these deep dives. I really do. Is there anything that we haven't covered that you would love to tell the listeners, inspire the listeners with? Anything you can leave us with?
I always like talking to young dancers and saying, Imagine the life you want and you need, and
Mhm.
piece it together
Yeah.
and find your way and follow your heart."
Yeah, thank you. Follow your heart. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Emily. This has been wonderful. Come back anytime. But everybody, thank you for listening. This is Dance Talk with Joanne Carey. Follow us, like us, and share, share, share. Thank you, everybody.
Powered by Riverside.